So Sam Presti did a talk with I don't know what the school was, but a sort of Q&A on Zoom with a school. And a listener
So
asked,
this is Sanctity Hour? Is that what we're the segment that
yes,
we're jumping
yes.
into?
Well, I'll give you the question that was asked of him. Now, I could say I give credit to the host because the host took the words of this and did not ask it exactly as it was asked. But the question was, in 2015, when the Sixers started off 1-21, league owners pressured Adam Silver to take action. He subsequently worked with owner Josh Harris to bring Jerry Colangelo into the ownership group. Hinkie was fired shortly thereafter. In recent years, the Thunder have adopted a process-like mentality. You've benched Al Horford and are sitting SGA indefinitely. Mm-hmm. You have 15 first-round picks between now and 2026, which is far more than Hinkie ever hoarded. If Hinkie's conduct warranted intervention, why doesn't yours?
Yeah.
So the question, which is a fair question, and if forgetting about Sam Presti, who just has to do his job, if you're the commissioner and you are letting these, you have to think about whether it's time for you to resign. So the host asked a question about Hinkie and tanking and what his thoughts on that are. And he used the phrase tanking. So you can hear it in Presti's answer and what the difference between what Presti is doing now and if the league should step in. The host did soften it. Here is Presti's response.
I'll read it because I want to feel it in the moment.
Okay.
I want to really put myself in Sam Presti's shoes.
Okay.
I'm good friends with Sam, so I have a lot of respect for him over the years. I knew him when he was in Houston. He's actually from Oklahoma, a very small town, so I look at that different. Look, I understand the terminology and the narrative around that. I don't know where that term came from. I think it came
He's talking about the term tanking, by the way.
I think it came from boxing when someone intentionally tried to drop a match for gambling purposes or something. I think there's a pretty big difference between that and a team that has to rebuild itself through a system that everybody has to work within. So if there were ever a situation where players or coaches were intentionally doing things to affect the outcome of games, 100%. If a team or organization gets to a point on their timeline where they think it's in the best interest of the franchise and the value of the franchise to focus on the future instead of the present, and in order to do that, you invest in young players and the development of young players and draft picks so you can build a more future-facing team, I think that's business. I think sometimes we have to realize that, yes, it's entertainment, but what people don't want is a mediocre product. When someone's really good, someone's not really good. I'll use the Sixers as an example. They kicked our ass a couple weeks ago, and the series is now 21-4, so they have to beat us 16 more times to get to 500. But that's just the nature of cycles. The reality is Daryl's team in Philadelphia is going to be really good for a long time. The shoe's on the other foot. They're going to be beating us around for a little bit. That's sports. How do they get there, though? Through a strategic building process that's going to get them what? 10 years of sustained success, and they were bad for what? 4? There were other teams that were bad during that time that aren't going to have a 10-year run of success, so you could argue that their strategy to rebuild through young players' draft choices and play the longer game might end up being the best business strategy as opposed to those that were resisting that. So I suppose it's all how you frame it. But by no means is anybody doing anything that will be equated with what that term is. I think it's just rebuilding. So
there was a bit of a space where somebody else jumped in and said something, and then Presti came in with this. I will say all Presti has done here is really just make our argument. But I love this because this is something I've never heard anybody else say, and this is what Presti came in and said at the end. Go ahead.
If a team trades all of their draft picks so they can win now, are they tanking in the future?
It's a good point.
Yeah, I mean that's what this is all everything we've always said, and I think I would like Presti to say it's bullshit. Times have changed, and he should and Hinkie shouldn't have gotten edged out the way he was, and Adam Silver made a mistake. He should apologize for it or resign or insist or implant the Colangelos onto another organization. But I think he just agrees with what Hinkie did, and this is not it's not a revolutionary thing anymore because people have done it since. And him saying, hey, yeah, those other teams that were bad then did a bad job and aren't good. And they should have done the thing that they did because for 4 bad years, it was really 3. I think he got 3. And it would have been probably even fewer if Joel hadn't gotten hurt twice. Yes, now there's years of sustained success on just a purely business end. And Spike, how much I love business.
You love business. You're a crypto guy.
I'm a big crypto guy, big businessman. And it just makes financial sense to do. We've talked about this before. The idea of the process as law school or medical school, where you're paying money to do something that will hurt you in the short term, but you're building a little portfolio of stuff, you're getting them together, you're learning and growing together, and then you're going to be successful for a long time. And you pay off those debts, which is what the Sixers are doing now. It was always bad faith, the people that were against it. They just pretended like they didn't understand. And people do that so often, and those people suck.
I couldn't agree more. We're on the same page on this one. And Dave Silver should, I think the best thing here is to resign. Now, the fair thing, if he honestly believed in what he did, is to sick the Colangelos on someone like Oklahoma City or Orlando. But
it doesn't have to be Colangelo. It could be like a Rod Thorne. You could take a Rod Thorne.
Yeah, or does Doug Collins have any sons?
They have to be associated with the Sixers in some way, I will say, because we just have just such a roster of failed older men that just
How
need
many DeLeos
jobs.
are there?
There's a bunch of them. There's so many.
Yeah, so many DeLeos.